All right, so I want to welcome everyone to, this is the first of CVSA's presentations that we'll be doing hopefully once a month. That will be presentations from member organizations around the country that are doing many different things, and we'll be talking about their work. And we're doing this in order to share insights and methodology from the direct experiences of different organizations that are dealing with all the different aspects of the very serious economic, social, and environmental problems that we're all facing and striving to solve and win solutions to towards building a better world. And so today's presentation is from Caryn Maxim, North American Coordinator for Grupo Cajola. So before we start, I just want to say we are going to have everyone on mute until the presentation is over, and then we have 15 minutes for questions and answers. And should be a chat function at the bottom of your screen in your questions. I can then manage getting them answered at the end. You have two choices when you type in the chat. One would be that they would go to everyone or to just Caryn. So do them to everyone so that I can see them, because I'm not where Caryn is. And we are recording this, right, Caryn? We're recording this.
Yes, we are. It's on record.
Okay, so that others will be able to see it later. So just for those of you who are new to CVSA, CVSA, Commission on Voluntary Service and Action, is a non-governmental organization. It was founded back in 1945, and it's a coordinating council to promote volunteer opportunities and involvement with community-based grassroots organizations that are serving people in communities that are in dire need of systemic solutions to the economic, social, and environmental problems that we're facing. We are an all-volunteer staff. We publish the catalog titled Invest Yourself, A Guide to Action, which is a comprehensive guide to hundreds of full-time and part-time volunteer opportunities with such organizations. And we're in the midst of compiling a new up-to-date edition right now. We're almost done. We do need more volunteers to help with it, so that's something please keep in mind. We also have special NGO consultative status at the UN. And we do participate as much as we can to bring the stories of organizations like Grupo Cajola and many others into the international discussions that go on there. And so most importantly, just one more note, CVSA has also been carrying out a community education campaign about the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, which there'll be a graphic on your screen.
You want them
right
on there?
now?
You want them?
Yep. Yep. If you're not familiar with the 2030 SDGs, there is more information about it on our website, which is cvsa-investyourself.org. We urge everyone to get very familiar with them, because most of the rest of the world is fighting for these 17 goals. All 193 countries in the world who are members of the UN, including the US 5 years ago, all agreed after 3 years of intensive debate and discussion that these goals must be achieved by 2030, or we're really not going to have a livable world. And so we are promoting them in the US because our government is not, and building strength towards them from the ground up. Grupo Cajola is a very good example of that kind of grassroots action needed towards these goals. And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to Caryn.
And could you see those goals? Did you see them on your screen?
I didn't.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still learning Zoom, so I had them so you could see them, but apparently I didn't do it right. So
look at our
Susan, and so for my presentation today, I'd like to start out with showing you a short documentary that was made about Grupo Cajola in 2016 by a small media group called The Newest Americans, which is associated with Rutgers University.
Fundamos el Grupo Cajola aquí en Nueva Jersey porque lo atropellaron a un que es de Cajola. Él estaba inconsciente, pero sí respiraba. Como nadie hizo algo sobre él, lo desconectaron el aparato que tenía y lo mandaron para Guatemala. Llega en Guatemala, en el aeropuerto, se muere. Nosotros nos pusimos a pensar, si no nos unimos, ¿qué nos va a pasar?
Toda esta construcción, a estas casas que se han construido de block con unos bonitos estilos, es a base de las remesas de Estados Unidos. Podríamos hablar de unos 7,000 cajolenses en Estados Unidos.
En Cajola, en estas fechas, creo que está el 70% de los hombres que tienen 18 años a 40 años que están en Estados Unidos.
La migración ha venido a desarraigar nuestra cultura, damnificar a nuestras familias, pero con el tiempo me di cuenta que si no hay mucha migración, la comunidad puede mejorar su situación.
Aquí está papá, Pedro y yo.
Nací en Cajola, estuve 10 años en Estados Unidos y cuando estuve en Morristown, yo fui víctima de un balazo que me pegó en la cara. Estábamos tomando con mis amigos. Desafortunadamente tuve una pelea con alguien que tenía un arma de fuego y en ese momento cuando me dispararon caí en el piso sangrando y tuvieron que romper mi tráquea, que tengo la cicatriz acá, para poder sobrevivir.
He needed a place to come for his healing process. And so I was asked if I would put him in my house because where the undocumented immigrants live is usually a lot of people crammed into one room and not really ideal for healing from a significant wound. And so he came to live with me and ended up living with me for 2.5 years. I was doing immigration advocacy work, working with the day workers, and actually that's how I met Eduardo. And I was very impressed with his intelligence, his charisma. Then I thought, well, I could do a lot of things to help him achieve his dreams, and that's what happened.
Después del incidente que tuve, creí que el dinero no lo era todo, sino que también tenía que compartir un poco con mi familia, verlos por tal vez última vez. Me vine para Guatemala a finales del 2005. Después de haber vivido 10 años en Estados Unidos, es a comenzar a caminar en piedras donde duele, donde ves la necesidad física de la gente, la necesidad emocional. Haber estado en Estados Unidos cambió mi forma de pensar porque empecé a ver que sí tenía futuro en Cajola, haciendo unos cambios en la estructura que se ha vivido.
Vaya una tripleta internacional dentro del terreno de juego dirigiendo la Copa Santa Cruz Cajola esta tarde. La final, vaya. Lateral para
Gracias por estar, gracias al equipo local por estar con nosotros, por hacer ese esfuerzo. Lamentablemente uno tiene que ser ganador y uno perdedor.
Vamos a ver a quién rápidamente el cabezazo del defensor lo está complicando.
Estoy por la tercera vez aquí en Estados Unidos. Cuando yo entré en la primera vez en Estados Unidos, tenía 20 años. Yo me vine a buscar un futuro para mi familia, para mis hijos. Estuve casi 7 años aquí. Tomé la decisión de volver a Guatemala porque los hijos están creciendo sin padre. Mi mujer se llama Luisa Gunilmen.
Chitnejl viaj, entonces casi hatok sultnejl cual. Azulten nejl viaj, naqtesh qihtin del naqjuntien porque ni cuenta. Tentult kamaje nejl. Mejor que matzang lueje hatok shul ka tal cual. Y casi me ven khaya tu que yo por el después shitil
Vaya, to Yolinia. Yolinia. Vaya. Estuve tratando toda la forma de cómo quedar allá, no volver acá. Me tocó otra vez de venir porque tengo una meta de sacar a mis hijos adelante. Quiero darle una buena preparación. No quiero que ellos pasen la vida lo que yo pasé.
Eduardo venía recién venido de los Estados Unidos, cursaba tercer básico. Cuando me casé con él, mi mamá me dijo, perdiste tus estudios, perdiste todo lo que tenías, ahora te vas a casar, vas a ir a lavar ropa, limpiar la casa, cuidar tus hijos. Pero Eduardo aprendió de otras personas que no es así, que al casarse uno no es ahí que se termine todo. Que se fue en los Estados Unidos, le dijeron que la mujer tiene el mismo derecho que el hombre. Ahí me dijo de que su sueño era que crearan empleos aquí en Cajola para las mujeres, porque casi aquí en Cajola nadie da oportunidades a las mujeres que son inalfabetos.
A ver, empiecen a conjugar los verbos en presente, pasado y futuro.
Bien, ahora empiece yo, trabajo, en presente, en pasado y en futuro, igual como hiciste aquí.
Iniciamos con la organización de la comunidad, soñándonos, visualizando un futuro mejor. También entramos en el camino de detener o disminuir la inmigración.
When some of the guys returned to Cajola in 2005, I started to go to Cajola with them. I invited family members of the guys here to a meeting, and the first month we had 25 women, and the second month 100 women showed up.
Entonces, el pueblo de Cajola ha sido marginado y ha sufrido consecuencias migratorias, no solamente internamente en Guatemala, sino que también al exterior, específicamente hacia los Estados Unidos.
There was a real interest in trying to explore what it is they could do to move themselves out of poverty.
Entonces, este es un nuevo modelo en donde se le ha entrenado, donde se ha preparado a la mujer para que también tenga la posibilidad de llevar ingresos económicos a su hogar.
We went through a year-long process, every month having a meeting. We started brainstorming how they could earn money, and so the weaving came out of that process. The idea was to learn to weave on a foot loom, because most of the women in Cajola learn backstrap loom while they're young. But backstrap, there's 200,000 backstrap weavers in Guatemala, and it's not easy to earn a living like that. So another group of women started to learn on the sewing machines. Then we put the weaving ladies together with the sewing ladies, and then I decided that our best idea would be to market in the United States, because we could price products in the United States so that the women could earn a living. We are selling to other retailers, we're operating our own website, and we are selling probably around $50,000 a year.
La mujer está tejiendo y el niño está ahí molestando o gritando a su madre. A Caryn no le gustó porque pobre del niño, él no está aprendiendo nada. Es tiempo, dijo Caryn, empezar con la pequeña escuela. Ustedes trabajan y las nenas aprendiendo aquí en la escuela.
Nuestra prioridad es enseñar el idioma mam, recuperar la cultura ancestral, el respeto hacia los seres humanos, convivir conjuntamente con la naturaleza. El segundo proyecto con la comunidad fue crear la granja de pollas ponedoras, en donde también se empezó a entrenar a la mujer de cómo trabajar en una empresa profesional.
Entonces 19 cartón, 5 de 30.
La machi salqet khulirchi maqamatsa khuru qasukartu atsoho maqa senke cual tu trabajo.
Mande para el pan.
Adet nihil, o sea, ya me encoxish lo banchish. Pero jalen, hoy es más hoy ya hoy es lo mejor cuando toquen o chwin claro.
Váyase despacio, de todos modos, aquellos se van a venir a encontrar en el camino.
Tenemos 2 nenas. Son nenas, pero tienen el derecho, dijo Eduardo. Por lo mismo yo estoy luchando, estoy trabajando para dar buena educación a mis hijas.
Tenemos que crecer mujeres que digan, yo valgo porque soy mujer, yo valgo porque soy ser humano.
Cuando hablo con mi hija, yo siempre le digo, nunca cambies tu estudio por venir para Estados Unidos. Nunca pienses de venir en este país. Yo no quiero que ellos o ellas sufran como yo, entonces de esa manera tengo que sacrificar otra vez. ¿Ya tiene copia todo? Me tocó otra vez de venir. Todos tienen formularios, todos ya llenaron sus formularios. Es algo doloroso de vivirlo, la vida real de los inmigrantes que vivimos aquí. 98, 99. Yo ya crucé la frontera, yo ya caminé en el desierto, yo ya sé cómo es estar aguantando hambre, aguantando frío, aguantando sed. Arriesgamos nuestra vida solo por una causa, por buscar algo mejor. Todos los días sueño de regresar, sueño de estar con mi familia.
Cuando chico, sí, todo tos magelan como jatocan chichi, cuten la ágil, solo te al su tal familia a igual osa. Sí, milte ya no jugagne, o chimpon camle solo, pero ya no jugagne sin esbete solo, ya no jugagne sin quien
Aquí no somos delincuentes, aquí nosotros somos personas con familia, con dignidad y con un sueño de construir una mejor sociedad. Todo lo bueno que hay en Estados Unidos, podemos implementarlo con nuestra gente, ¿verdad? Entonces, haber estado viviendo y trabajando en Estados Unidos me dio la oportunidad de aprender y de copiar o robarles lo bueno que ellos tienen y implementarlos en mi comunidad.
See about how Grupo Cajola was started and what it's about. And so this afternoon, what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about the challenges that we faced along the way on this road that we're on towards development, with the dream that the Grupo Cajola has of having a community developed enough so people aren't forced to migrate anymore. So first I'll start with my own personal challenge. So I've been traveling to Cajola for 2 weeks of every month for 15 years until last March when they closed the airport because of the coronavirus. And really my own personal challenge that's the largest is how to navigate being a gringa in an indigenous male-dominated culture. So I've been very careful to never be a decision maker, to try to be an ally. And I've been very conscious of my identity as a white person. But even in spite of that, I've had a lot of learning to do. One thing is the women that I work with have taken a really long time to begin to listen, to begin to challenge any of my ideas or challenge any of my decisions. But I think I'm perceived as a very good ally by Grupo Cajola in general, because I have been careful not to try to be a decision maker. I offer lots of ideas. I offer resources and try to move the group forward, but it's the group who decides what's going to be done, when it's going to be done, and how it's going to be done. And I remembered when I was watching the video that in that video, Flora says that I decided when to create the school. And that's actually not true, because I had the idea of the school early on because I could see the weavers working with their children, and I don't think it's effective for the children or for the weavers. But when I brought that idea to the group, they said, it's a good idea, but we can't deal with it now. And it was when they felt like they were ready to deal with it, that's when we began the work on the school. And so this was a few years later, they said, okay, we're ready to work on it. And so I said, okay, I'd be glad to help. You need to find somebody in the community who's going to be really moving the project. So I really have been careful not to push my own ideas onto the group. So for Grupo Cajola, really the biggest challenge has been that trying to get people to believe that change is possible and that they can be protagonists in this change. Because after 500 years of poverty and discrimination, really a lot of people in the community have just kind of given up. They can be survivors, but they don't really believe that you can make a change. So how did we do that? So it started back in 2006 with a very small group, about a dozen people. And of those people, they did believe that change was possible. They were the people that we found that did believe that. They were, in general, young people. And several of them had an experience migrating into the United States. So they had a similar experience to Eduardo in seeing things could be different. So the second challenge that we face is people have to have the tools to make those changes. So in Cajola, when they did the census in 2005, there were 3 people in this community of 18,000 people who had a university degree. Wow, it's also a highly illiterate. So the first program we started, well, first we started with an internet center, but the first program we started was a scholarship program. And we've been working since 2006 with the Maya Educational Foundation to offer scholarships. Over time, we struggled a little bit with how to balance the program. Our goal is to develop professionals for Cajola who are committed to their community and committed to their Mom Maya identity. And right now we have provide scholarships from middle school through university that they're available for part-time or full-time work. Our scholarship students receive, well, they're required to receive their scholarship. They're required also to participate in monthly meetings that we have. And those monthly meetings are to give them workshops on current events, on their mom culture, on how to study better, on possible careers, a whole range of things in order to encourage them to be able to take advantage of that education. So Guatemala itself has one other thing. We also require our scholarship students to volunteer for 2 hours each month in one of our projects. And so they do something that relates, if they're studying to be a teacher, they would volunteer with one of our educational programs. If they're studying to be a doctor, they help us in that way. So it depends on what they're studying. Guatemala itself has an atrocious public education system. So our primary school has classes of about 40 children, 1 teacher, no books, no materials. It really is a terrible situation. And although in the beginning we tried to influence the school system through parents' committees and things like that, where we have impacted the school system has been with, or where we've impacted education has been a program that we started called Helping with Homework. And this came out of primary school students visiting or using our internet center and chatting with them. It turned out the 5th and 6th graders still weren't capable of reading. So we started this program. We had because of coronavirus, we had 60 students coming for 1 hour a day to our program to get help with their learning. And so we consider, and we have a big waiting list. So we think it's a really good program and we'd like to expand it after we get coronavirus behind us. It's really, though, our most impressive or strongest educational program is our preschool that you saw a little bit of. It's a preschool based on the Maya, on the Reggio Emilia philosophy. Reggio Emilia schools from Reggio Emilia, Italy, are considered the best in the world, and we have modeled our school based on their philosophy. Their philosophy is based on your own culture. So that's why our kids are learning to read and write in Mom, and they're learning about their culture. And it's based on children's interests. And so the children develop great analytical skills. And it's based on very strong involvement by the parents. And it's this involvement with the parents that has really made an impact, I think, in Cajola, because the parents involved, the parents of the school children have really been able to learn how to be more effective parents. And they have large families, so that skill gets spread about. So I really think that's our most powerful program. And the other aspect of education is all along we've been very committed to training in the skills you need to do your work. So we've provided carpentry training or weaving training or seamstress training business skills training, training in how to care for the chickens in the egg project. And in the last few years, we have had an ally in an NGO from Guatemala called Fundap, and they're very supportive of our work. And so they've been helping us in funding some of our training opportunities, which has been really very nice. Another challenge has been working in a government, under a government that is totally corrupt and in a system designed to oppress the indigenous people. And so everything that we try to do to work within what we're supposed to do in the law is really difficult. They change the laws without letting us know, or when we go to get something done, they send us on a wild goose chase here and a wild goose chase there, and today you need this and tomorrow you need this. And it's been very frustrating. And this is another area that Fundap has helped us with, because they're a big organization and they have lawyers on staff, and so they've been able to help us sort through some of those things that have driven us crazy in the past. From the beginning of the work, our work in Cajola, I have to admit that most of all the decision making was done by Eduardo and me. And so that was okay for a while, but we realized some years ago that's not the way to make a sustainable organization. So we've been working on making it a sustainable organization. And the first thing we did is to activate our board of directors. So the board is elected every other year, but until a few years ago, the board never really did anything. So the first board that had to start working was a little shocked. And it's been a process of trying to have them develop the skills and the confidence so that they can really move the organization. And it's not a perfect world, because Eduardo and I are accustomed to jumping in and making decisions. So we've had to go very carefully to make sure that we're not jumping in and that we're letting the organization develop its own experience and its confidence. And about that same time, we started to, we had grown from these 12 people originally to about 60 or 70 people. And so we needed to be making some changes. So another change that we made is to start encouraging or semi-requiring all of the participants in Grupo Cajola projects to come to our monthly meeting. And so people get involved with Grupo Cajola from getting a scholarship, for working for us, for wanting to volunteer, for a million different reasons. But here we were starting to collect them a few years ago so that they begin to see what else is going on and hear what else is going on. And then in 2018, in July, we held a few brainstorming sessions that were facilitated by another ally of ours, an anthropologist named Brianna Nichols. And we invited people to come to talk about or brainstorm what it is that confuses them about the group, what it is that doesn't work, what it is that they don't understand, how it could be better. And we were really thrilled. We had more than 60 people participate in these brainstorming sessions. And out of that came a great roadmap, which we've been implementing. So things that have come out of it have been things like writing job descriptions, clarifying roles, clarifying communications, starting reports, a lot of things that go in an organization, but we're really missing from ours because we hadn't grown up with them. So that work is still continuing. A key factor in or a key thing in our Grupo Cajola is the role of volunteers. So you heard that we require our scholarship students to volunteer. The volunteers volunteer in different aspects of different projects. So for example, one of our programs is called Sunday Reading Circle, and that is completely run by volunteers. We get our volunteers involved in fundraising activities, and then all the work that the group has decided to do in environmental sustainability, so things to do with plastic pollution or things to do with reforestation, all of that is 100% volunteer work, although we collaborate with other or organizations to provide us with the trees or things like that, but the work is all done by volunteers. So the issue of sustainability has been particularly important to me in the weaving work. So when the weaving cooperative started, more than half of the women had never been to school or had not finished 6th grade. So when we started, we provided literacy training. The women were required, who needed it, to attend literacy classes every day on site until they reached 6th grade, proficiency. Well, that's cool, but it's not that easy to run a business with 6th grade skills. So it wasn't until we had a couple of young women who had secondary education enter the weaving co-op that I began to see, wow, this is how it's going to be. This is where we're going to get the talent to be able to take the responsibility to run it, because really it was me doing most of the running. And so we started with a finance coordinator and a production coordinator, and my first challenge was to get all this stuff out of my head and externalized so that they could do the work that I did. And they do it actually much better than I used to do it. And then we appointed a sales and marketing coordinator, and we have a quality control coordinator, and her story, it's very interesting, but for another day. And then in January of 2018, we formed a sales and marketing council. So I remember the first day, they're like, what is this all about? And so I told them, really, your first job is to develop the Guatemala market, because I've been developing the US market, but you need to develop the Guatemala market. And so they learned a little bit how to do product costing, how to set prices, what you need to do to develop new products. But I have to tell you, within 2 months, they moved into running their whole business, including human resource things. It's been totally, totally awesome. And so it's like, wow, here we are with sustainability. So I am really more focused in the weaving with what's going on in the United States. And I'm there more, when I was there more, as a representative of the United States, what we need of new products, et cetera, et cetera. And also in the weaving co-op, I have an example of what we, Grupo Cajola, are looking for in this development. So we have a seamstress who entered into the co-op some years ago. And after a few years, she said, hey, I want to take advantage of the scholarship program, because I've sent my 4 kids through college, but I never finished middle school. So I want to do that. Well, of course, that's a no-brainer. We always support that. So she went and she finished her middle school. Then she said, you know what? I want to study fashion design. What? So she studied fashion design. So when she came back, she was still working. So it was on a part-time basis that she was studying. When she was working, she started to share her ideas of what she learned. Like, hey, we could do this different. This would be better. We should use this instead of this. And so the Sales and Marketing Council made her into our new products development coordinator. So here she went from needing to finish middle school to a key member of our management. And so for us, my mom in the United States, she's a godsend, because now I just have to tell her what I need, and she knows much more than me about construction of things. So she can put together a sample, and it's really been great. But for us, it's the investment in the education and then being able to benefit from it. So that's our story of Celia. So now the last challenge that we've had to face is the coronavirus. And so we were merrily moving along when the coronavirus hit. So what did we do? So the first thing we did was ask one of our scholarship students who's studying medicine to come and give a talk to each of the groups about what is the coronavirus and how are we going to deal with it? What do you have to do? So he explained face masks, social distancing, sanitizing your hands, things like that. So we arranged some of our work, we rearranged some of our work orders, etc. We had to, there was a curfew put in until a couple of months ago, so we had to put the weavers down to part-time work. And the carpentry worked pretty much the same, and the chickens, the egg farm worked pretty much the same. We immediately had to shut down our preschool. We immediately had to shut down our helping with homework. Our preschool teachers are amazing young women, and what they did first, instead of crying, they started to visit the homes of all of their students one by one and do activities in the people's houses with the children. Then they started to invite the kids to come down to the school on one by one in appointments so they could work with activities with the kids. And then about a month ago, they started up school again, only very socially distanced. And they've had to really adapt the way they teach. But they really have been an example for all of us, like, oh, what can we make out of this? And we have recently relaunched our Helping with Homework program, only we're working out of each of the homes of each of the teachers and with small groups of children and socially distanced until this is all behind us. So that's my story. I want to give you the moral of my story is that really it's been a case of trying things, evaluating them, tweaking them, trying them again. That my own personal motto has been patience and persistence, and Eduardo's has been make haste slowly, step by step. So that's my story. Did we lose Susan? No, there's Susan. Susan?
Hi. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very, very much. So it also seems one of the morals of the story is the processes that were developed so that there are role descriptions and job descriptions, and the whole thing is transferable. And I was wondering if you could even say a little bit more about, have there been any instances of people from other parts of Guatemala coming to learn what you did to be able to replicate it?
Oh yeah, we have a zillion visitors who always want to know how it's done. I think the thing that's daunting for people, this is my experience in the US with organizing too. It's a very slow process, and you have to invest the time in the people and getting them that training, getting them that awareness, getting the, it's like people want to do it fast, and so they like to do it top down. And so that's, the secret is that investment of time. I think if we had to do it again, we could learn from the mistakes that we made, but that's a part of the process. And it took, in Cajola, it took a long time for people to believe that it was worth putting their time into it. So I was surprised. So I did the organizing of women for 2 years in total. And I worked with about 2,000 women in 6 different groups. And every month we'd have a meeting, and then some month some lady would come to me and she said, this isn't going fast enough. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not going fast enough? Like, what's your alternative? Like, that's how I look at it from my Western culture point of view. What she looks at it is, well, if it's not going to result in something, I might as well be home BSing with my friends. And so that's the thing. You have to, like, you really have to understand where you are and work from there. You can't, and you can't push it. I mean, you think, you go, you show up. I mean, I know I thought, I even think Eduardo thought, you show up, you have some resources, you can invest. Where's everybody? Well, everybody wants to see what's really going to happen. So it takes a long time. Even our chicken project, which sounds easy, we bought our first chickens in October of 2007. We closed the whole thing down about 4 years later. And then some of the women came and asked if they could restart it. So it's a huge investment of time. So yes, people come all the time. Sometimes we tell them what's happening and they're like, oh no.
So another lesson out of it is also the necessity for organizations to demonstrate results. And as you demonstrate results, more people then put the time in to get further involved.
Right, that's definitely true. I think that's what caused us to be 12 people for a long time, until people could see there were good things going on, or people that got involved in something for scholarship or something that they got out of it. But then over time, it became obvious that it was worth being there. I'm gonna see what's in the chat box. Are there more Cajolenses moving back to Cajola from Morristown? Yes, they move back. There's always moving back and forth. They used to move back and forth all the time. Now they are moving back. And you know what happened during the coronavirus is, with the airport closed in Guatemala from March, it didn't open until September. People had to hire coyotes to get back. Yes, people wanted to go. And also during coronavirus, it depended. In Morristown, the people were still working and earning money. But in some places, the people in Cajola had to send money to their family members in the States because they had no money to pay rent. It was really tragic. So people come from Cajola all the time to New Jersey and to everywhere else in the United States, and they go back some of them go back when they're done accomplishing something. Others end up getting married here or staying here, and some people end up staying here for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So it's different for everybody. Let's see if there's other questions. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm back on.
Okay, there you are.
Sorry.
I just answered Lorna's question about
Right, I heard part of it. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
No.
No, okay. So I think, one of the things about this is that an organization like Grupo Cajola is dependent on volunteer involvement. I mean, even the work in North America, there are students and people in the community who volunteer with Caryn on the North American part. And volunteers have also gone to Cajola from the U.S. to work there for short stints or long stints. Correct me if I'm wrong, Caryn.
No, that's right.
But this is all part of what it takes to build from the ground up. Ultimately, things have to change in Guatemala for sustainable economic development to happen across the country, to wipe out that illiteracy and the poverty that's been there for 500 years, enforced by very bad policy and subjugation from U.S. corporations. And so what we organize here in the U.S. is very, very important in relation to building that future. So I just wanted to add that in terms of framework, and that's why CVSA is doing what we're doing to help strengthen grassroots organizations throughout the world, but mostly in North America here and the continent, and always need more volunteers. And we're very glad to share this story with people to hopefully give you inspiration and ideas and further insight on what it takes to build strong organization.